are you? Welcome to my YouTube channel D&D Pathshala. First of all, wishing you all a very happy Kanma, and let's get started with our video. So today's video is related to a case presentation on microcytic hypochromic anemia. So what is this microcytic hypochromic anemia? I'll be discussing in the further slides in the diagnosis. So let's get started with our case. So my patient name is ES, and her age is 50 years, and she is a female, and her religion is Roman Catholic, and she was admitted in the Department of General Medicine, and her chief complaints are she is presented with the symptoms of cough with sputum and vomitings along with the bile contents, fatigue, mild abdominal pain. So these all above symptoms were present to the patient since 10 days. And the physical examination and the laboratory tests are done on the day 1, 2 and 3. So the past medical and the social history of the patient is she is a known case of CKD on maintenance hemodialysis. And there is no past history of the diabetes mellitus or any thyroid problems or any hypertension etc. kind of problems like which are related to any kind of malignancy problems. So there are no past history, but she is a known case of CKD on hemodialysis, maintenance hemodialysis. And when coming to her social history, she is a non-smoker and she is a non-alcoholic and she is unmarried and she is having an economic background in a medium range. And she is living in Guntur. And coming to her physical examination, the cardiovascular sounds, that is the S1 sound and the S2 sounds, are normal and these are positive. And I'll be discussing the physical examination, means how to do a physical examination on a patient. I'll be discussing in our further videos. And CNS, that is central nervous system examination, is the patient is normal and she is cooperative and her response to the every question is very good. And when coming to her abdomen, there is no kind of tenderness or swelling is also not observed. It is normal in shape, and her bowel habits are also normal. So coming to her lab data, so these are lab data. I'll be zooming and showing each lab data. So when coming to her lab data, the serum sodium, potassium levels are normal. And when coming to her serum chloride levels, these are decreased to a slight 3-point range. Means the normal level is 98, but she is having a range of 95 mmol. Means mostly the serum chloride levels will be decreased because of the fluid loss. That is because of, as she is already having nausea, vomiting. So because of these fluid loss symptoms, the chloride levels will also get decreased. And the blood urea and the serum creatinine are already increased as she is having already a kidney disease. So this blood urea and serum creatinine will mostly increase. And when coming to her SGOT levels and serum alkaline phosphatase levels, so these are in a high range. When compared with SGOT, the serum alkaline phosphatase levels are high. So this will be indicating that she is having or being suffering with any kind of liver problem or liver injury, but she didn't report any kind of symptoms in these clinical type of chief complaints during the hospital period. And total leukocyte count is also very high, means the normal range is up to 4,000 to 11,000, but she is having 18,300 cells per CUMM. So mostly in a normal patient, the WBC cells will be increased. Means if the WBC count is increased, then the WBCs are increasing to fight with any kind of infection to provide immunity. But in the WBC increased range, this is known as, in this patient, this condition is reported as leukocytosis condition. So because of this leukocytosis condition may occur because of any kind of injury or inflammation or any kind of infection, or if there are any allergic reactions that which are occurred in these patients, then these TLC count may be increased. And serum protein is also same. If there is any kind of fluid loss, the serum protein levels may also get decreased. And when coming to the serum albumin levels, So the serum albumin level should not be decreased in any kind of persons. So because the albumin levels means these albumin will be maintaining our body fluid to not leak out in the body without unnecessary conditions. If the albumin leaks out, then there will be insufficient albumin, and it may lead to any kind of liver problems or any kind of dehydration problems. So if there is decrease in albumin, there may be any kind of liver problems or any injury conditions, or is the liver getting damaged, then there will be slight decrease in the albumin. But if it is increased, then it may be due to dehydration or any kind of severe diarrhea. So these are the albumin parameters. Now coming to the HB and PCV and RBC, when compared with the normal ranges, all are very less. In a HB it is 6 and 6.5, means the normal is 10 to 18. So because of decreased HB, the anemia condition may occur, and other kind of diseased conditions may also occur, like any kind of malignancy conditions and PCV. But here the patient is not having any such kind of malignancy condition, so here we can estimate it to as an anemic condition. PCV condition means PCV condition will also determine the full form of PCV is packed cell volume. So it is also decreased, means it will be also indicating that there is a deficiency of RBCs or hemoglobin condition. So it is also an anemic. RBC condition is also decreased. So RBC levels are decreased than anemic. And platelet counts are normal. So platelet counts are also normal. So there are no deficient symptoms, and serum ferritin levels are also normal. So these are the lab data of the patient. So these are the other tests that which are carried out in the patient. So on day 1, as during this COVID period, she has undergone the COVID test. So the COVID test was negative, and as she is going on the CKD on maintenance hemodialysis, so here the peritoneal dialysis was performed in home. So peritoneal dialysis or analysis. So analysis and the drain are done. So 50 ml is taken for analysis, and the 250 ml drain is occurred and done. So in this 250 ml drain, some of the pus cells were found in this peritoneal fluid. And on day 3, the histopathology of the RBC was done. So the report was severe degree or severe diagnostic degree of anisopoikilocytosis with microcytic hypochromic anemia. As I discussed in the introduction slide, I will discuss in the further diagnostic slides. So what is this microcytic hypochromic anemia means? So first of all, I will be differentiating each and every term. Microcytic means the size is small. Hypochromic means the HB, that is the hemoglobin count, will be decreased. So if there is decreased hemoglobin count, then the RBCs will be of pale color. So microcytic hypochromic anemia, that is smaller sized decreased HB RBCs. Because of decreased HB and paler hemoglobin RBCs, anemia. Microcytic hypochromic anemia. And what is this anisopoikilocytosis? So first of all, I will tell what is the anisopoikilocytosis. So anisopoikilocytosis means the RBCs will be not in a same kind of shape. The RBCs will be of different sizes and different shapes. So when differentiating this anisopoikilocytosis, so anisocytosis is one term, poikilocytosis is another term. So anisocytosis means that RBCs will be of different sizes. Poikilocytosis means the RBCs will be of different shapes. So here the combined condition is there in the patient. So RBCs and the RBCs are in the different sizes and different shapes. So this is the patient's condition with the symptoms and with the diagnostic criteria. So these are the tests that which are carried out. Now let's move on to the diagnosis. So provisional diagnosis and the final diagnosis. So what are the differences between provisional and final diagnosis means? Provisional is based on our assumptions, means we can assume that this person is suffering with fever or headache just by seeing or just by our normal knowledge. But after the biochemical test and after any kind of radiological test like X-ray, scannings, so by that test we will get a final picture. So provisional, it was assumed that acute gastritis with general weakness, as she is having abdominal pain and discomfort. So because that we have assumed that it is an acute gastritis condition with general weakness and with discomfort. So final diagnosis was made by depending upon the symptoms and by depending upon the diagnosis. It was assumed that it is a microcytic hypochromic anemia. The RBCs are of anisopoikilocytosis condition. So these are the diagnoses. So this is a brief picture. So here you can see in the normal, the platelets, RBCs, WBCs are in a very normal condition and the RBCs are very red. Means RBCs will be more red if they are having enough and high hemoglobin count. Now coming to the microcytic anemia count. So here we can observe the RBCs are very small and the W high and the platelets are normal. When coming to macrocytic, the RBCs are in very giant size, means big, large size. And when coming to the hypochromic, so the RBCs colored is very pale, means it is not too light or too dark or not normal. So it is paler. So combining this microcytic and hypochromic, this patient is suffering with microcytic hypochromic anemia. So now these are the daily vital signs of the patient. The patient is not suffering with any fever condition, so that's why the patient's temperature is in a normal range, and the patient's BP, it is just slightly fluctuating, that is like 110/70, 110/70 in first 2 days, and on the third day it is decreased to low BP hypotension condition, that is 90/60, and on day 4 it became normal, and the pulse rate, that is 86 beat minutes. So it is also just slight fluctuations like 86 beat minutes, 86, 84, 86. And respiration cycles per minute or count per minute, it is of 22 cycles or count per minute and 22, 24. So these are the fluctuations that which are observed in the vitals of the patient. So on day 2, on day 3, on day 4, the diarrhea condition was also developed by the patient. So this is another addition, that is this is another symptom or complaint or any clinical condition that which is developed by the patient during the hospital period or hospital stay. So the coming to the drugs, these are the drugs given to the patient. So 5 drugs are given: injection Jofa, injection Optineuron, injection Magnex Fort, injection Gyrope, Genome sachets. So injection Jofa's generic name is ondansetron and its category is antiemetic category, and it is given in a dose of 4 mg, and its frequency is of TID, means 3 times a day. It is given in IV route, 4 days. Optineuron is vitamin B complex and other supplements, vitamins and nutritional supplements. It is the category. Dose is in, it is given 3 ml injection in 100 ml NS, and frequency is given OD, and route of administration are IV. Except Genome sachets, all are given through IV route. And Magnex Fort is an antibiotic which is consisting of the cefoperazone and sulbactam, and injection Gyrope is recombinant human erythropoietin, that is erythropoiesis stimulating agent. So now we will discuss the brief mechanisms of these drugs. So coming to the Jofa, ondansetron is an antiemetic drug. This antiemetic drug, ondansetron's mechanism of action means it will be blocking the 5-HT3 receptor, that is 5-hydroxytryptamine antagonist receptor. So it will be blocking its activity in the CTZ. CTZ is chemotactic or chemoreceptor trigger zone. So if the signals are blocked, then the chemotactic receptor zone signals will be also, the signal communication will be also reduced. By this reduced communication, the nauseatic feeling and the vomiting sensations, so those all will get decreased. And coming to the optineuron's mechanism of action, it is consisting of vitamin B complex and other kind of supplements like pantothenic acid, niacinamide and benzyl type of alcohol. So these are the other components present in it. So what is the use or mechanism of action in this vitamin B complex means? So if the vitamin B complex is given to this patient, because of her anemic condition, the RBCs will get increased. If the RBCs get increased, the iron supply will also get increased. And due to the iron supply increase, then the HB will also increase. So if RBCs and HB are completely increased, then these all components are increased, means then the anemic condition will also get decreased. And when coming to the Magnixfort, so Magnixfort is a type of antibiotic, that is the cefoperazone and sulbactam. So cefoperazone and sulbactam means this cephalosporin and beta-lactam antibiotic. So cephalosporin antibiotic class is it? This cefoperazone is a cephalosporin. Yes, it is a cephalosporin class antibiotic. Sulbactam is a beta-lactam inhibitor. So what is the mechanism of action? Means this cefoperazone will be inhibiting, means it will be showing its bactericidal or killing, or static means inhibition action on the bacterial cell wall synthesis. So why we have prescribed antibiotic in this patient means, so because of any kind of infection presence, as the WBC count is also very highly increased and the other biochemical parameters are very high. So if there is any kind of infection, so as to reduce, this antibiotic is given. So cefoperazone will be inhibiting this bacterial cell wall synthesis, and to prevent any beta lactamase organisms activity, this sulbactam is also in an addition, means the drug is already containing the sulbactam's mechanism is it will be showing its beta lactamase competitive type of inhibitory activity. Now coming to the Zyrope injection. Zyrope injection means the erythropoiesis stimulating agent. So why we have given Zyrope injection in this patient is recombinant human erythropoietin. So recombinant human erythropoietin is given in this patient because she is suffering with a severe degree of anemia, that too anisopoikilocytosis condition. So to increase her RBCs, so this erythropoietin will be producing or stimulating the bone marrow, means in which part of the bone marrow? The soft bone marrow, that which is present inside. So by the stimulation, it will be producing more RBCs. If RBCs are more produced, then the anemic condition will also get decreased. So these are the genome acids. So what are these genome acids? These are a probiotic category which is consisting of Saccharomyces boulardii. As we all know that the probiotics are very good source of nutrients that which we can get from the useful bacteria like Saccharomyces boulardii, Lactobacillus, such type. So what is the use of giving this probiotic in this anemic patient means? So this probiotics will be normally providing a very good intestinal flora, but also it will be also promoting and preventing this bacteriostatic infections and bacterial infections in this patient, and it will be giving a increased range of iron absorption and production of more RBCs in a healthy type of flora in a healthy environment. Means the just common type of mechanism means it will create the environment in a healthy way, means the internal environment of our body it will be maintaining in a healthy way. So by maintaining such healthy environment, homeostatic balance will be also restored. So these are the drugs and their mechanisms that which are given to the patient. So this is a just brief review on a SOAP analysis method. So SOAP analysis is subjective, objective, assessment and plan of care. So subjective data, the same chief complaints. She is suffering with cough with sputum 10 days, vomitings along with bile contents 10 days, fatigue and mild abdominal pain. Past medical history, she is a known case of CKD on MHD, that is maintenance hemodialysis. She is a non-smoker, non-alcoholic and unmarried of medium economic background, and her blood group is B negative, and her serum chloride, creatinine, blood urea, these are the abnormal type of parameters that which you are seeing in this slide, that is ALP levels, HB, PCV, TLC, RBC and histopathology tests. So these are some of the abnormal data. And the assessment and the diagnosis, so based upon the subjective data, that is like fatigue, mild abdominal pain, vomitings along with the bile contents, and objective like HP, PCV, RBC, TLC, platelet count, and depending upon these conditions the patient is assessed to have the provisional diagnosis, that which I have said in the previous one, acute gastritis with general weakness or discomfort. Finally, it is microcytic hypochromic anemia with severe degree of anisopoikilocytosis. So the plan and the goals of the treatment are to monitor the patient vitals, means to decrease the fluctuations in blood pressure or pulse rate or any temperature, and to treat the patient in a very effective manner by providing the useful drugs to the patient in a specific range, and also to reduce the vomitings and abdominal pain, and to normalize the abnormal lab data like SGOT, ALP, and histopathology reports, and also the HB, PCV, RBCs, and to provide the symptomatic relief, and also to improve her quality of life by decrease of the, as her symptoms will be decreased, then the patient's condition will be improved. If the patient's condition is improved, then automatically normally the patient life will be improved. So monitoring parameters means, so there will be two kinds of monitoring parameters. So one is disease specific, one is drug specific. So in disease specific means the vitals and the weight of the patient should be monitored, and the symptoms like the anemic symptoms like fatigue, abdominal pain, weakness, so such type of symptoms should be monitored, and we should report to the physician. So what should we report to the physician and the pharmacist? If there are any kind of other symptoms, or if any lab parameters other than the abnormal, if they are worsened, or if they are decreased, or if they are increased in abnormal range, then we have to report to them. So the physician and the pharmacist will be taking the steps to decrease or to increase the normal count or to decrease the abnormal count, and also we can prevent further kind of complications. And drug specific, so drug specific means we should monitor the drug interactions and the contraindications of the drug, and normally to prevent or to provide the drug efficiency and to prevent the drug side effects, we have to maintain the gap between each and every drug. So if gap is maintained between each and every drug, then the side effects will be reduced. If there is side effects reduction, then the drug cost. So some of the monitorable type of side effects are through JOFR, bradycardia, bronchospasm, and through optineuron, acute MI, and Magnexfort, that is the antibiotic injections like rashes, pale red bumps, and on the skin there will be observing swelling, and gyrop injection, that is the erythropoietin injection, increased BP, edema, any kind of heart disease or any kind of seizures, and through genome sachets, that is the Saccharomyces boulardii bacteria sachets, dry mouth, skin itching. So these are some of the drug specific type of adverse effects that we should be monitoring. And after monitoring, if the patient experience any of the following kind of side effects, then we have to immediately report to the pharmacist and the physician, so they will be taking initiation in preventing these type of side effects. So coming to the discharge medications, these are the medications that which are given for the patient during her discharge period. Pantoprazole, proton pump inhibitor, levofloxacin. In the place of Magnexfort injection, levofloxacin antibiotic is given. So it will be coming under the fluoroquinoline antibiotic. And Levogen cap tabs. Levogen cap tabs is a composition of ferrous fumarate, folic acid. So even this ferrous fumarate and folic acid not only increase the iron content, but they will also increase this HbRBC content. So if these HbRBC contents are increased, then the anemic condition will be decreased, and the patient will be free from fatigue and abdominal pain. So these all will get decreased. So these are the discharge medications that which are given for 1 week, and after 1 week she was again reviewed to come after the slight reduction of her condition. So when coming to the pharmacist intervention, there I have not noticed any kind of drug interactions or drug food interactions that which are given in the drugs in this patient during the hospital period. But actually there are 2 moderate drug interactions and 4 drug food interactions in the discharge patients. In the discharge patient medication, so the discharge medications are the levofloxacin, Pantop, and Levogen cap tabs. That is the ferrous fumarate and the folic acid. So drug interactions are the Levogen cap tabs and levofloxacin. So if both Levogen cap tabs and levofloxacin are combinedly used, the iron and levofloxacin will be the combination used will decrease the levofloxacin effectiveness. And another drug interaction is, if the Levogen cap tabs and Pantop are given, then the iron bioavailability will be decreased. So we have to maintain the drug gap. Means if the Levogen cap tabs are given, then we have to maintain the time gap between the levofloxacin drug and the Pantop drug. So as to prevent these kind of drug-drug interactions. And when coming to the drug-food interactions, Levogen cap tabs are one of the drug food interaction. Means if these are taken with any kind of phytic acid type of foods like grains, legumes, nuts, seeds and potatoes, beets, so the iron absorption will be decreased. So during taking this Levogen cap tabs, we should avoid taking these foods. And again the Levogen cap tabs, if they are taken with dairy foods, they will decrease the iron bioavailability. And again the Levogen cap tabs, if they are taken with soy or any kind of soy protein, so this will lead to the decreased iron absorption. And the last one is the pantoprazole. So if the pantoprazole is taken with the cranberry or its cranberry products, the proton pump inhibitors efficiency or the effectiveness will be decreased. So these are the drug food interactions and drug-drug interactions in the discharge medication. So about the drugs, the Pantop, it should be taken before breakfast, it was advised. Levofloxacin, it should be taken after meals. And Levogen cap tabs, these should be taken 1 hour before meals. So we have to maintain. So here the maintenance is there. So levofloxacin, it is advised to take after meals. Levogen, it is taken 1 hour before meals. So there is a sufficient amount of gap. If not there is a sufficient amount of gap, then the patient can take it 2 hours before the meals. So it will be a sufficient gap. So coming to the patient counseling. So junk food should be avoided and avoid canned and processed foods and mostly over spicy, salty, beverageic foods and refined sugar foods and beverageic foods. So these should be avoided and very healthy and balanced diet should be taken and iron rich foods. So lean meats, lentils, nuts, beans. So here I have written beetroot. So during the Levogen cap tabs, the beetroot should not be taken. So beetroot should be skipped. In this point, the beetroot should be skipped and we can take the iron rich foods like meats, beans, nuts, lentils. And dry fruits like apricots, black raisins. So I have also said that some of the nuts like phytic acid nuts, so those should be also skipped. And the phytic acid non-rich nuts can be taken. And eating spinach, means the spinach should also be not taken in a very high content, as this patient is already having the kidney disease. It may lead to the stone formation also. So the spinach should be taken in a normal way, in a normal manner, means it shouldn't be taken very high, in high amounts. So it is high in content and other like dark chocolate, and even here in this others like soya beans. So I have given a general type of counseling point. So we have to skip the beetroot and the raisin, not only the raisin, the dry fruits or the nuts that which are rich in phytic acid and the soya beans. So those should be skipped. And drinking the prune juice or plum juice. So what are this prune juice and plum juice? Why should we take? You all may ask that why should this plum juice or taken or prune juice should be taken? Because the half cup of this prune juice or plum juice will be containing 3 to 17 mg% of iron. So it is very effective in an anemic patient. So these should be taken. If it is available, then you should definitely go for this option. And consuming other foods like non-vegetarian foods like liver, salmon, tuna, cashews, pistachios. So if the pistachios and cashews are in phytic acid rich content, avoid them and take the non-vegetarian foods. Exercise regularly and practice meditation to get relieved from the stress or anxiety or any other kind of disturbances like social stress or any kind of other problems. And always smile and stay happy. Don't worry that you are having such kind of this disease. I'm not only saying that for this patient, if any kind of patient who are suffering with anemia, please don't worry. By taking happy healthy measures and by taking healthy food and exercising, you will get recovered very soon. But first of all, you should be staying calm and staying stress free and happy. And keep yourself motivated and don't worry, you will be fine very soon. So these are some of the vegetables like spinach, dandelion greens, sweet potatoes, and fruits like prunes, watermelon, meat, other foods like eggs, seafood like shrimp, dried cod, breads and cereals. So these are some of the foods. And iron deficiency anemia chart. And these are some of the snacks like total iron, breakfast, snack, lunch, snack and dinner. This is a type of diet plan, so you all may can follow. And this is the meditation and staying happy, and always keep smiling and happy. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you liked my presentation. So please, thank you, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.